Good evening, everybody. A joint meeting, Town Council Planning and Development Subcommittee, Town Council meeting, Monday, April 12th, 2021, 6 p.m. Call to order pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30 Alpha, subsection 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Planning and Development Town Council is being conducted via hybrid remote participation only. No in-person attendance of the members of the public will be permitted in the council chambers, and every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to view this meeting while in progress may do so by watching Southbridge Cable Access Channel 192 or by the remote information noted below. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website at www.ci.southbridge.ma.us as soon as we are able to. Roll call vote is required for all votes taken under this order. Roll call, let's see, we have Councilor Dow.
Yes, present.
Catherine.
Present.
Councilor Lazo.
Present citizen.
The
Which one are you talking
the other
about?
brother Lazo.
Okay, he's not here.
Yeah. Dee Dee La Rochelle is excused. Councilor Adams, present. Agenda item number 1, review, discuss the application for Jason King to serve on the planning board effective immediately through June 30th, 2023 to fill a 2-year term due to member resignation, and entertain a motion to vote to recommend to council for confirmation. I need a first and a second, please.
Motion moved.
Thank you, Councilor Dow. Catherine, do you want to second that?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a first and second discussion. Mr. Town Manager.
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. Before you this evening, you have an application from Jason King, a recent Southbridge resident, but no stranger to the workings of Massachusetts state government and local government. I met Mr. King, as many have, through his work with Senator Fatman's office. I had the opportunity in a professional and personal capacity to speak to Mr. King and about his interest in serving on the Southbridge Planning Board, and based on his interests in what he studied in undergrad, I think he would be a perfect candidate for the position. And given that we have a vacancy in 2 alternate positions, and we need somebody at the moment, I would highly recommend Mr. King for this position. And at this point, Mr. Chairman, I turn it over to you folks for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. I appreciate it. Any questions, concerns? Councilor Marquetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. I did see on Mr. King's resume that he does work for Senator Fatman, and he also ran his campaign. And I was wondering if anybody thought that might present some sort of conflict of interest, or even the appearance of a conflict of interest.
Thank you, Councilor. Mr. Town Manager.
Well, it's not unusual for people to have jobs that one may think have an issue. If there was, he could always file with the Ethics Commission. Everybody who takes a position as an elected, appointed, or a full-time staffer has to go through ethics training. He would have to file a disclosure. He could recuse himself for anything that was related in any way, shape, or form to his regular job. But I'm not sure how something at the state level would necessarily play into local zoning. But like anybody else, as you've already seen, we have someone here who has stepped down because of their work within the community, and they work for some competing organizations, and they from time to time step down. So I think, with going through the ethics training and filing the proper disclosure if needed, there shouldn't be much of a conflict, again, because I can't see anything coming in. The only thing that may be an issue is if there was some conflicting state policy coming with something that our local zoning board had to entertain, but nothing to jump out on a specific project by project basis that I think would be an issue.
Thank you. if I can
Yeah,
continue.
please.
I do know that the conflict of interest law, once a person serves on a committee, they then become a municipal employee, and they can't be involved. They can be involved in campaigns, but they can't be compensated for a campaign. They can't do any fundraising for a campaign, and according to his resume, he has been involved in the fundraising for Senator Fatman, or he can't act as an agent. The other thing that I'm kind of concerned with is I just don't want to see the planning board turned into any kind of a political committee. Thank you.
Very well. That's all you have, Counselor?
That's it. Thank you.
Anybody want to have any other discussion on this? Jackie, Counselor Ryan, please.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification. I get Councilor Marchetti's point about ethics. However, because he would be an appointed/elected, it's considered a special municipal employee, and I believe those employees are directly exempt from like the fundraising, contributing, etc. laws because it's an appointed and elected board instead of a hired paid position. There is a legal difference when it comes to the state of Massachusetts on that issue, just for clarification.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Dow?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for you. I just want to say thank you for Jason for stepping in and volunteer. I mean, we need people. I'm going to vote yes tonight. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you, Counselor. Anybody else? Catherine, do you have anything else? Do you have anything? I will say,
Nothing.
thank you, Catherine. I do know Jason. I do know he just moved to town. I was aware of him working for Senator Fatman's office, but he's the one who obviously approached me about volunteering for the town. He just moved here. I do know he'll be taking ethics training as well, and I'm pretty sure the staff and the planning board itself, as we've recently seen, if there's any type of ethics issues, they will have to recuse themselves from any type of vote or the meeting itself. So I look forward to moving his name along to the town council. I will say he's above reproach. I did ask him to attend tonight. I don't know what happened, why he's not on at this point in time that I'm aware of. But regardless, he's helped out quite a bit with the veterans organizations in town and has volunteered his time in other areas, along with his local church, some food bank places around the state itself, all on his dime. So I don't see a problem at this point in time, but I do appreciate the Councilor Marchetti's question about it because it is, I believe, a legitimate question to ask. All right, any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor, Catherine?
Yes.
Councilor Dow?
Yes.
Councilor Adams, yes, 3-0. Agenda item number 2, review fiscal year 2022 economic and development budget in the amount of $70,325 and entertain a motion to vote to submit to council as presented. Need a first and a second?
Motion moved.
A second.
Very well. We have a first and a second discussion. Mr. Town Manager?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman. I know that this evening we should have Ms. Dean and Mr. Rumsey on the line to answer some questions. Ms. Dean, I hope she's feeling better today. She had to stay home for sick matters today. Nevertheless, the budget is presented to you this evening. As you know, there are indirect costs that come from CDBG to offset some of the economic development funds and expenses. What you will see, and I will do my best to answer this particular question, we have left the non-indirect costs, the non-CDBG costs for the Economic Development Director in the budget for the time being. So when the prior Economic Development Director left, we being Ms. Dean, Mr. Rumsey, and my HR specialist, Kim Farron, and I had put together a temporary agreement that governed how we would divide up some of the responsibilities and experiment with whether the the two existing employees and their part-time administrative staff essentially handle the duties of their regular day-to-day CDBG and planning functions, but also take on some of the economic development. So far, that's been working quite well. We've fashioned a temporary agreement that would govern the divided duties, as well as we utilize some of the remaining salary from fiscal 21 to compensate the two employees for the additional duties. We said that we would revisit this before the end of FY 2021 if we needed to make any adjustments or we wanted to make this permanent. And also in that mix is we have a part-time administrative person who we recently hired who's doing a really great job. But we also, when that person was hired, we also talked to them would they be interested in any type of full-time work. And the reason we discussed that was if we decide to continue with the model that we're working with right now with Ms. Dean and Mr. Rumsey dividing some of the economic development and planning role, we may need to put some of the additional administrative tasks that were handled by the prior economic development director towards the administrative assistant. And from what you can also see, the number of grants that have been processed through that office, there's been a lot of yeoman's work done by primarily Ms. Dean, but also by Mr. Rumsey. And I could foresee us increasing the hours of that part-time person to take on some of the administrative role that Ms. Dean's been handling with some of the grant processing. That way we can shift the responsibilities. I would anticipate if we go that route, there may be some monies that are saved. We've been saving money to date, but we're still playing with the various permutations of how we could make that office function with the staff that we have now. So that's why I've respectfully requested to leave Ms. Scrivener's salary from FY 21 into the 22 budget until we make a final determination of the best course for economic development and planning. And then if you don't have any questions of me, I would then hand it over to Ms. Dean to talk a little bit more.
Thank you, Mr. Town. Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Ms. Dean?
Hi, can everyone hear me okay? Yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, okay, good. So just quickly, Eric and I put together a few slides that just highlight our budgets. We have the economic development. You can see we break out here what's covered under general funds versus the CDBG under economic development is this the 65,075 plus our operations, which is another 5,000. So the 70,000, 75, and then for planning, you've got the salaries and operations totaled there for the 83,695. The zoning under Eric and the Concom under Eric are both nominal. And then what we did was just a quick summary of sort of what we're trying to do in the office. So, you know, who we are as a community, we are that 59.9% low and moderate income. We are therefore eligible for those CDBG mini entitlement funds due to our demographics. DHCD reevaluates our eligibility every 3 years, but as it stands, as we all know, we're eligible for that $825,000 due to that percentage of LMI. And then Eric thankfully put together these next three numbers. So our commercial parcels for sale and release, the vacant storefront, and the available commercial industrial flex space. And the idea behind putting these together is, you know, what we're doing essentially is how we're improving those statistics and elevating our profile is through the next four functions. So Eric, I don't know if you just want to highlight those. Maybe. Maybe?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. We're short on time.
No worries. So, as the council knows, we recently passed, or you recently passed rather, the two overlay districts to allow for mixed-use development and mixed-use growth within the Globe Village area and the American Optical Complex and surrounding properties. I think those are going to be a great success. We're working towards filling some of those spaces right now. I had a phone call this afternoon with F.R. Mahoney and Associates. They are a wastewater manufacturer. They manufacture parts and things for wastewater treatment plants. And they're looking currently for 10 to 12,000 square feet in space. And two of the spaces that I put them in contact with the owners of are within the AO complex and also within the Globe Village Overlay District. We are hearing, there's a lot of exciting new developments that are happening to some of these properties. For example, 64 Mill Street is putting in all new windows. I know that doesn't seem like it's very exciting, but it shows a commitment on their part that they want to see their building continue to survive, and they want to fill that space. They are currently looking at a space on their lower level to house another company that's coming in. About 20,000 square feet of that will be utilized by this company, potentially up to 30,000 square feet. So again, that kind of goes to the next, which expands the commercial tax base with new businesses coming in. And in addition to that, we have approved 3 out of the 4 marijuana dispensaries, with Green Meadows currently being open. They've been open since February 28th. And they seem to be doing some really good business. I was in there a couple Thursdays ago for a tour, and the people coming in and out was tremendous. We are working towards new housing developments and potentially some new restaurants coming into town, and some existing restaurants. For example, the South 9 food truck is looking for a permanent home so that they can be open more regular hours as well as later into the evenings. So we are, through that, we're promoting job creation. For example, I'd go back to it again, Green Meadows, 40% of their workforce has been hired from Southbridge residents, and they're looking to expand upon their Southbridge hirings with their when they get their manufacturing and cultivation facilities in place.
Thank you, Eric. And then talking about the infrastructure and community grants, just quickly. So, we were awarded the CDBG CV, which is the coronavirus grants, shared streets, urban agenda, the LRRP for planning in the downtown, how to improve those storefronts that are vacant. And we anticipate hoping to get the Mass EDIP, the One Stop for Growth, one of the grants within that, maybe the park grant, the Mass Trails grant, which is next winter. So, like the town manager said, aggressively going after other sources of funding. And so just to wrap it up, I think the town manager already summarized very well where we are as a department. So Eric's responsibilities were expanded to develop and implement short, long-term economic development strategies, meet with developers to review alternatives for achieving desired outcomes, gather, interpret, and prepare data for studies and reports. And this was all due to these changes up here. So our director resigned in November 2020. We hired our first attempt at a part-time admin with Wendy Chambers from November 2019 to December 2020. She resigned. So please note, this is the first new part-time admin since the prior position, which was traditionally full-time. We would advocate again for a full-time position. This was not our decision. This was the prior director's position to size that down to a part-time. We feel like the department already needed the full-time. We have the demand for it. Interim changes, town planner and my role was expanded. My role was then to oversee the CDBG wholly and work with and through the Southbridge Redevelopment Authority, hence the urban agenda and the LRRP efforts. And then our responsibilities together have been to collaborate with the different bodies to seek and utilize other grant opportunities to achieve town-adopted economic development objectives. And we hope for the best, whatever the town decides. We sit and wait patiently. But in the meantime, as the town manager said, we devised our budgets accordingly. And so if you wanted to just go quickly line by line with
So,
our.
all right, thank you, Ms. Dean, I appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead.
Yeah,
I appreciate the brief on how you guys are doing. It's no different than what other people have prepared before the meeting. But we do need to move on as far as the budget is concerned, take a look at the different line items. So I'm assuming, Ms.
Okay.
Dean, you're going to, I'm sorry, Mr. Rumsey, you're going to start off with the planning budget? This is what I'm sorry. Economic budget, economic development. If you can go line item
Yes.
by line item, thank you.
sure. Yeah, so what we've got is, you'll see under salaries and wages, I'll assume we're all looking at the same under the 1180511000. You see ins and outs of economic development director, full salary 93,633. Then you see underneath it, the 28,558 is the amount that the CDBG funds, hence being subtracted out. Then you see the admin line in full, then you see my line, the CDBG coordinator 100%, and then my line subtracted out. Then you see the admin assistance line subtracted out 100%. So the only position that's funded through town general funds is 69.5% of the existing economic development director position. Then under specialized services, we have $4,000. Eric was going to mention that it's for basically our app GEO and our CMRPC expenses. And then we increased our office supplies because we continue to struggle to meet the RICO expenses every year, even offsetting it with grant funds. Mileage, we took off the table because we want to use the town car as much as possible and not reimburse for mileage. Conferences and meetings, we kept that the same. That would be for me, for my CDBG startup grant, for any of the HUD-related trainings, and the MCPPO, which I was recently designated. I have to continue those credits. Using subscriptions would be for the, forgive me, it would probably be for the, thank you, Eric, yes, the SPP, to continue that. So that's it for the economic development.
Thank you, Ms. Dean. Any questions? Councilor Marquetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. The Economic and Development Director's position is vacant, and I'm just questioning whether we should keep that position since it's vacant, unless they are planning on hiring somebody. But even more than that is that even though it's vacant, they're giving it a 2% increase, which doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense to me, that a position is vacant and they're given the vacant position a 2% increase. So that would be my only comment about that. Other than that, their budget looks pretty modest. Thank you.
Mr. Town Manager, did you want to, I do want to add that Dee Dee is here attending, so it'll be four members. Mr. Town Manager, did you want to add anything to that? I know you explained that in detail as far as the Economic Development Director.
As I indicated, we had agreed last fall about, I want to say in November, that we would give this a 6-month trial. It appears to be going well. We are using some of the Economic Development Director's salary, the non-CDB portion, to provide some additional compensation in recognition of the expanded duties that have been taken on by the two folks, Mr. Rumsey and Ms. Dean. Realizing before we had a staff of 3.5, and there was a feeling that it could have been, or there was a need for a full-time admin, which really needs 4. Now you're operating on 2.5. If we decide now to replace the Economic Development Director, that position, I think that the monies that are in there would likely then be redistributed to the salary lines for the 2 people that are doing the bulk of the work, and then upgrading the part of the admin. So it's not that there isn't a shortage of work. We're just trying to determine where we're going to use that salary amount most effectively. So I would ask respectfully to keep it in.
Thank you, Mr. Town. Thank you, Mr. Town Manager.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. But to use it for other positions, but then give a 2% raise on that doesn't make much sense to me. The other, I mean, I don't think that 64,000 is being split among the other 2. I find that hard to believe. But the other issue that I have here is, again, another CDB G fund that could be used in other departments, and we're using it here for a position that doesn't exist. So that's my only concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Go ahead, Counselor Catrona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, I want to go back a little bit in time. I believe it was November or December. I was the only vote that I can remember that voted against filling, that voted to not get rid of the economic development position. I wanted this position. I still want to see it filled. And as I spoke passionately at the last town council meeting, to have an economic development director, and this council I think really needs to get together as well as with the town manager and put together a good 10-year plan with an economic development director. We're a town without a plan for economic development. That's my opinion. It's great that we're bringing in the CDBG funding. We're bringing in that funding because of the demographics. I think we want to change the demographics and bring in more, see more of the storefronts on Main Street filled, see more commercial, more business come into this town. And it's my opinion, as I spoke last time, and I won't go into it again, to bring the bike trail back. I know we're working on that, but the economic development director, I think, it's a key role to bringing back Southbridge. And I'm not saying that the staff we have there now is not doing a phenomenal job. They are. But my opinion is that that's a strong position needed to bring this town back and to move this town forward. And I think we will help, and we can only benefit from filling this position. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for you. I agree with Council Cotrona. I'd like to see that position stay. I know Eric and Peg working so hard, and they're doing great, but I believe they need more support. You can run so far, and at the end you're going to get tired, you're going to slow down a little bit, and we don't like to see that. We like to see steady. So I agree with Council Cotrona, what he said. We'd like to keep that position and the money for now funded to see what we're going to do for the next step. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. So go ahead, Councilor Steves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It occurred to me while you were talking about this is that the funding there for that particular job may end up having to change because, as I recall, when Rosemary came in, we actually negotiated her salary. She's one of the few jobs that we do that with. But I was also thinking that if that situation stays vacant for a while, maybe we could also take some of that funding and actually hire a part-time conservation agent. Since Eric is focused primarily on the planning end of things, it might be really good to have somebody who can do 15 or 20 hours a week just dedicated to conservation. I think it would be really helpful to have somebody in there handling those issues really directly so that Eric can be free to do the stuff that he really cares about, which is planning. And that's what I was thinking.
Thank you, Councilor Steves. Anybody else? Okay, I guess I can argue the point. I do believe we should leave this in here for this year, and maybe as long as the other two individuals and possibly a third are doing what we need, because we see a lot of money coming into the economic development area through grants and some other businesses that are coming to town. Maybe have to work on that money sometime next year. I'm not in agreement with filling this position at this point in time. So I would highly recommend that allowing the town manager to continue to evaluate the two individuals that are down there in the part-time position, leave the money in there for the time being, just to see it. Has to go through us anyways. But I gotta tell you, I don't foresee at this point in time to hire somebody else on just because. We did have a third person, didn't really work out that well, and paid a lot of money. I would ask, as we go along, maybe the town manager take a look at the salary, because it was the negotiated salary I believe it was a little higher than it probably should have been at that point in time. That's all I have to say on this. Anybody else? Dee Dee? You're muted.
Okay, so if they don't fill the position and the money sits there, at the end of next year, budget time, would that money go into free cash?
Yes.
Yes. So we're not losing anything. Correct?
No. No. Through you, Mr. Chairman, no, that is correct. If we don't use it to, for compensate, if we don't hire the economic development director, if we decide to formalize the plan we're using now, we would use a portion of those funds to, for compensation for the enhanced duties of the planner and the CDBG coordinator for their role as taking on economic development. And then we may consider increasing the hours of our part-timer there, because we only have 2.5 doing essentially the work of 4 people right now. So my thought would be, we may have to look at bringing up the hours of our part-time person to help with some of the administrative duties and the filings of these grants, to allow Ms. Dean and Mr. Rumsey to focus on those. You know, part of the reason we looked at doing all of this is because the council had made it clear to me that they didn't want, you know, we were trying to hold the line during COVID, not filling some of these positions. The 2 staff members stepped up and said they think that they could do the work, and they pitched a proposal to me. It was unsolicited. We sat down, we talked about it, we looked at the division of duties, and then, you know, I made the decision that said, well, they're going to step up. We'll compensate them for going over and above. I think you've seen the fruits of their labor with regard to the grants that have been applied for, and I do think they need some support behind them. They have the part-time admin, but again, we're experimenting with this, so that's why I'm asking for that. We can look at some of the things that were raised here about the 2%. I know Ms. Scriven's salary was increased when she came in. I believe it was on the other step and grade. It went up to the A9. I think it may have been an S15 before, or an S16. We can check all that, and I can have some better answers for you when we go to the full council.
Okay, thank you.
Dee Dee, is that all you have?
Yes, that was it.
Any others? Councilor Dow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I don't believe we should get rid of that position. In the past, we have a weak councilor and weak town manager. Didn't hire maybe the right person for that position. And if the staff right now, there was go-getter like before, we wouldn't facing that shortage in the past. Right now, you know, they're running to see who's going to get that position or the monies, or, you know, if they're doing their job in the past, we will have the same result. So I think they need help. I believe you're not going to see it right away because there was nothing in the past, and now you see something, you think they're getting everything, but we're still missing a lot in the economic development in this town. So I think we need to keep that position. We need to find the right person, maybe like town Mr. McCall say, temporary try, or 30 hour, 20, 30 hour, maybe not full-time, whatever, but we need that position, and we need a person support the rest of the team. Thank you.
Anybody else? Ms. Dean.
If I may just respond to Councilor Dow's comment, please know that none of the function that I'm doing now in grants was in my job description before, for me to allow me to be able to pursue what I'm pursuing now. I would have happily gone after that, but it was not within my role. And so I'm doing basically what we've been given the opportunity to do, and would have loved to have done it before if it was within the job description.
Thank you, Ms. Dean. I just say once again, I reiterate, I don't have a problem supporting keeping this position open. I wouldn't recommend hiring anybody at this point in time. allow the town manager to evaluate his staff properly, allow the council to actually evaluate the staff and have a look at it as well. So I ask that any town councilor, by all means, go on down there, have a conversation with them and see what they're doing and move on from there. All right, if there's no other discussion,
One more thing, Mr. Chair.
go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're getting all the grant, all the money, but what's the plan if it's no more grant?
We're voting on a
Thank you.
appropriation tonight. I'm sorry, a budget. All right. Anything else? Okay. Councilor Catrona.
I would just like to state again, for this one position of the Economic Development Director, I believe it is a position that should be filled. Yes, we're getting a lot of grants, and that's wonderful. We're getting a lot of grants, as I stated before. Look at the economics in this town now. Look at the demographics. Look at the salaries. People aren't coming to Southbridge, and that's why we're getting the grants. We want to turn that around. The only way we can do that, it's my belief, is to hire an economic development director. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. If you're going to continue to discuss the same stuff back and forth, then, this is not what we're here for at this point in time. So, all those in favor? Dee Dee? You're muted.
Sorry, yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
Councilor Dow?
Yes.
Councilor Adams, yes. Agenda item number 3, review fiscal year 22 planning budget in the amount of $83,695. Entertain a motion to vote to submit to council as presented. Need a motion and a second? First and a second?
Motion move.
Second.
Very well. Discussion, Mr. Town Manager, or if you want to, Mr. Town Manager?
I don't want to belabor the point, Mr. Chairman. At this
you.
point, I can hand it right over to Mr. Rumsey, and he can give you any specifics and answer any questions. My suggestions would be the same as they were for the economic and development budget.
Very well, thank you. Mr. Rumsey?
Certainly, thank you. So looking at the budget line by line, salaries and wages, the percentage increase indicates that my position has gone from with a step increase and then the 2% increase for the year. And other than that, everything else has been level funded from where we're at this year. I will say at some point, maybe I'll be coming to you, I don't want to say this, potentially. The $660 for advertisements and promotions, I may need to at some point, depending on how things go with advertising for public hearings for things such as zoning bylaw updates. I know we've done several of those with you, the council. We may need to move some of the money from conferences and meetings into that account at some point in time. Again, it depends on how many hearings we end up holding and the cost of those. Currently, the amount is sufficient, I believe. Other than that, everything is fairly, actually it is level funded from where we were at this year in FY21.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Rumsey. Any questions, discussion? Councilor Marquetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you.
Sir.
On this budget, Eric, the planner, is getting a 5.6% increase. And then later in the week, we're going to be voting to increase the stepping wages an additional 2%. Am I correct?
Correct, I believe so. Mr. Town Manager or Karen?
I'm not following what you mean by that, Councilor Marquetti. I don't know that there's another vote. Typically, you get a step increase and a COLA if you're entitled to the step on the salary table. I'm not sure what you mean that there's a second vote later in the week.
Thursday, if I could continue.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thursday at the General Government Subcommittee meeting, we'll be voting on the step increases. So would that be in addition to the increase in the planner's salary tonight?
Karen?
Not that I'm aware of, through you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure if that's changing the salary tables for the next coming fiscal year or not. I can't answer that specifically. I see Ms. Harnois's camera came on, so she might be able to shed a little light as well.
Thank you. Karen?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. In each of the budgets, a 2% increase is built in for the cost of living adjustment, but the schedule has to be changed to reflect that. So like the town manager said, it's built into the budget here, but it has to be officially voted and changed on the schedules 1 and 5 when they come up on Thursday.
Thank you. So the increase tonight does not reflect that cost of living adjustment on Thursday?
It does, yes.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Very well. All right, for the vote, all those in favor, Catherine?
Yes.
Dee Dee?
Yes?
Counselor Dow?
Yes.
Counselor Adams, yes, 4-0. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Yes. Second? Got a second? All those in favor, Dee Dee?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
Counselor Dow?
Yes.
Counselor Adams, yes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.